Hi, folks.
Hello, E. Hello, everyone. Uh, as we discussed last week, the first agenda on the meeting would be the slides that we will present at the security meeting next week. Akash, while we wait for everyone, would you like to get set up?
Yes.
Let me make you the host. You want to change the host to Akash? Yes. Okay, that's transferred. Thank you, Akash.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll wait a few more minutes. Unless, I think we're at quorum, right?
Yeah, I can see everyone. I'm not sure if Sajay will be joining, but I did see he was reviewing the slides earlier.
Got it. Okay. So I'll get started. So for today, I'm just gonna first go through the main topics of the slides, and then I'll go through each one of the slides and focus on some of the content, not exactly on the slide, but some of the speaking points that I'm gonna emphasize. And then for each slide, we can just talk about what's missing or what we should add, things like that. So the general
Sorry, quick
structure.
question, Akash, before we start. With this review, do you want to time yourself, given that it's going to be a 10 to 15 minute presentation? Do you want to go through the whole deck and then we'll ask question and discuss at the after the 15 minutes?
Oh,
Whichever way you want to run it.
yeah, I was just gonna do more of an informal one. I just want to make sure that the content we have is locked in, and then I can kind of remove some of the verbosity
Okay,
later. Yeah.
sounds good. So we'll ask questions as we go.
Yes, please. Yeah. Just interrupt,
Thanks.
or I'll stop after every slide too. So just starting with like a general overview, the way I've laid it out, similar to how other projects I've seen have done it. So first slide starts with just an overview of what Ratify is. So I'll go into kind of the background of it, give a brief overview of what it does, as well as what the capabilities are. And then in order to contextualize like the whole framework aspect of it, I'm going to go through this diagram from a very high level point of view. So this is not like a technical deep dive, it's just to understand the different components. And then talk about like some of the use cases that we currently support, like image integrity, SBOMs, vulnerability reports, things like that. And then in terms of the Kubernetes service, I'll introduce OPA Gatekeeper as well. The next slide, and I'll come back to each slide and deep dive in each one. I'm just giving an overview right now. The next slide is just capabilities. So talking about like what are the top positives of Ratify, some of the things that we've enabled, and then talk from a high level view, like what are some of the user scenarios that we support. I'm also going to bring up some of the contributions that we've done, so the different partners we have in the community. And I saw that Luis also commented that we should probably maybe discuss like the users of it as well. So like image integrity, AWS Signer, the Venafi, Code Sign, Protect, maybe we can mention those here as well. And then the fourth slide is now narrowing in on the whole ratifying Kubernetes scenario. So this is where I'll kind of introduce Gatekeeper and Ratify's relation. So talk about the external data provider concept, and then walk through like a high level, if someone tries to deploy a pod, what happens behind the scenes and how does Gatekeeper and Ratify interact. And then also mention like, admission and audit scenario very briefly, won't go into depth into each one of those. Then go over like the high level signature validation scenario for the demo. So all the way from developer building the image, all the way to signing, pushing, and then ratifying Gatekeeper, making sure that the image is compliant. And then here's the demo. So the demo is a very short demo. It's on its own, it's only about 30 seconds, and it just focuses in on the notary project signature verification scenario. And I'll pause it throughout the demo to just kind of highlight certain parts of it, but it just focuses on that aspect of it. Then we'll go into the future roadmap, talk about the releases we have and some of the other stuff on the roadmap. And then finally, I'll end with a call to action, which is how the COPA presentation also ended, what we're looking for, where you can get more information, things like that. So that's just a high-level flow of the presentation. I'll go into some of the content specifically for each slide now. So here, beyond the things that you can see on the slide, I'm going to start with the background. So we started about 2.5 years ago. The mission was to define a way to verify supply chain artifacts that are associated with an image sitting alongside the image in a registry, and talk a little bit about why Ratify was designed in this decoupled plugin model because of the dynamic landscape of the CSSE workflow and how many new supply chain artifacts have been generated, new use cases have evolved over the last few years. And we wanted the verification engine to be able to adapt and grow with the industry as well as whatever users' needs were. So it's kind of like building blocks that you can grow with as you need more use cases to be supported. Then I'll go into the architecture a little bit. So understanding like what are the different flexible components. So the policy, the verifiers, spending more time on the verifier in terms of how you can implement your own verifiers and bring them in. The store here, which is the representation of the registry, and then talk a little bit about our how you can fetch keys and certificates and things like that. And then I'll briefly mention how we can support both Kubernetes service. So as kind of this service that you query based off of an image reference, and then we return back a vulnerability, a validation report. And then for non-Kubernetes scenarios, we ship a CLI as well that can be helpful for CI/CD scenarios where you're not in a cluster yet, but you do want to verify that the image that you're going to deploy is in fact valid. So any questions on the general overview? Not enough details, too detailed. What are people thinking?
I am adding some other comments in the presentation, Akash, as I speak. I think one of the things that I added was since you went through the content, might be useful to have an agenda slide so that you can just basically present the audience kind of what are you going to be presenting. Then in this specific one, if there's a way to avoid acronyms, you never know what for instance, KMS, not everybody might know. I know you will talk a bit about it, but if it's possible to sort of, I know it wouldn't fit in that little box, but maybe have it somewhere in the deck, sorry, in the slide.
Sure. Yep, that's a good point. I'll add a little bit, like maybe something on the bottom here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, SBOMs are probably something like the audience should know, but maybe do self-reveal materials and then introduce the acronym and parentheses. That's probably what I would do.
Sure, sounds good.
Hi, Akash. I really like your slide deck. It looks very fancy and logic. So how many minutes do you think you would be able to finish the whole presentation? Because I thought today it should be a rehearsal, right? But it's just an overview and just go through the slide. So do you think how many minutes you can finish for the whole slide deck and also for the demo?
Yeah, so I can do it. I think I can do it in 15 minutes, primarily because the demo is very short. the actual demo itself is only 30 seconds. So, and we're not gonna dwell too much on the actual demo. I'll explain this user scenario, but the actual demo is pretty short. I think we probably want to focus on the capabilities in general, and rather than focus more on the demo. That would be my opinion, but I think I can get it into 15 minutes, and once we have the content locked down, maybe I can then time it more directly.
Okay, so I think we need to pay attention to the timing, and I think we also need to highlight the ecosystem support of Ratify. So for the commercialized offerings, I think we can mention which commercial offerings, which commercial services are built with Ratify, like image integrity, code Ratify, right? Ratify Protect, Code Signing Protect, and AWS Signer. They have been listed on the Ratify adopters list. I think we can also add them to here because CNCF folks might think if we have enough commercial offerings built on top of Ratify, they think this is a sustainable and a good project with that may have big technology companies as sponsor this project.
Okay,
so maybe
yeah,
we can involve that adopter list as a justification here. And on another part, I think we can also list, or we can also showcase the open source ecosystem integration with Ratify. I know you have a demo with the end-to-end page, and I think we need to also add some other integrated or some other supported open source projects like 6.cosign and auras that we used to interact with OCR registry. So for those open source projects that we have been collaborated or integrated into Ratify, we can list on our workflow diagram. So since folks will think this is a very open and diverse framework and ecosystem for the cloud native landscape, for the cloud native ecosystem. So they will not only evaluate the functionality, they will also care about how the ecosystem and the integration growing in the project. I can help to update the end-to-end workflow diagram because I authored that a few months ago, and now I think there might be something updated, need to be updated.
Yeah, if you could, if we could update here, I know it doesn't exactly fit the scenario, but I didn't have the source for it, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or if you want to send me the source, I can also make the updates.
I can help to update this diagram directly and involve those related projects icon, the logos in this diagram.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. I think hearing the feedback, it might be helpful if we actually add a separate slide talking about like our community engagement and our current adopters. So maybe I add like a separate slide after capabilities talking about here are the the different projects we've been collaborating closely with, as well as the different companies that have adopted it. I'll take a note of that then.
And I think I also need to update the Notary project logo in that diagram. It uses it used an old logo, but it's not a big deal. I think I can help to update this diagram.
Okay, sounds good. Cool. Any other thoughts on this slide? Otherwise, I'll move on to the next one. Nope. All right. So this one is going to be focusing on the different user scenarios. So I'll talk a little bit about OPA Gatekeeper, introduce a little bit of what Gatekeeper is, because I'm not going to assume everybody knows it. So talk about how it's a policy controller, and it can be used for both admission scenarios where you're trying to validate the resources that you have, both trying to be installed on your cluster, but also already installed in your cluster via an audit functionality, and how Gatekeeper exposes a Rego policy, uses the OPA Rego policy language in order to evaluate whether or not these resources are compliant. And as part of that, you can configure an external data provider to enrich the data that you can apply your Rego on top of. And that's where Ratify fits in terms of providing that extra data. And I'll go more into depth in the fourth slide, but in this one, we'll talk about how in order to have a more Kubernetes native experience, we've implemented multiple CRDs that represent the different components that we discussed in the previous slides. This allows for a much simpler configuration and is a lot more straightforward. It also allows you to manage your Ratify configurations as native Kubernetes resources. Then I'll go into CLI support and emphasize how it can be used for non-Kubernetes scenarios, and talk a little bit about how, in general, that's what we see the direction that we're going to move in the next 6 months that's on our roadmap. And then the other component I want to focus on is the multiple artifact verifiers, and particularly how this drives the extensibility of the project. So talking about how we define a set of interfaces for verification that can then be implemented by standalone and external plugins that can then package and provide Ratify their own verifier binary to consider for verification. So this both is helpful for extending and expanding when there are new artifacts that are introduced, but also for custom scenarios that you may have where you're producing your own artifacts internally and you want to have an internal verifier that you're using. And then I'll focus a little bit on the capability of the policy engine. So we have an embedded policy engine that is optional. So for scenarios like when you're working with a Gatekeeper inside of your Kubernetes cluster, you may want to offload a lot of the decision-making to another entity, which would be the policy controller. And you'd want Ratify to just kind of act as an advisor providing information. Versus in the CLI scenario, you might want to support a full all-in-one experience where Ratify itself is making a final decision on the compliance of an image. And then talk about a little bit about how we support any OCI compliant registry. So any OCI registry that can store your artifacts alongside the image works with Ratify. And then talk a little bit about how we're a production grade project that is now stable. And we've done work to test our performance at scale. We've done a lot of work to make sure that we provide insights, metrics, observability, things like that, logging, support, error handling as well. Yeah, so, and then finally, I might split this part out to the other slide that we were discussing, but talk a little bit about how the project was built in collaboration with folks from Microsoft, Amazon, and a few other folks in the community. And then maybe as part of that, we'll introduce the current adopters of it, as well as the other projects that we closely collaborated with, Notary Project, ORS, Cosign, we were working for the integration, things like that. So yeah, any other things for this slide?
Sounds good.
I just saw your comment, Luis. Yeah, that's so it's supposed to, the intent was for it to be enhancing in addition to, so the right side would be more of like a generic overview of what Ratify is, and then the left side would be like specific data points that match to some of those concepts. But if it's confusing, maybe I can rework the diagram.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, like, I know there's some sort of mapping, like, obviously, like, the policy with the capable of policy decisions, but, like, you talk about vendor neutral, and, like, is that, like, that seems like a different capability than the ones that you are sort of listing on the left. So it's just I don't know, like, it might be a bit confusing on how to read one versus the other. But just maybe trying, it might be good. I don't know, like maybe we can work this one in a way that's a little bit simpler to read.
And any concerns if we just use the items called out as bullet points, like whatever you have, simple configuration through CRDs and the one on the left, and just have the slide with, hey, these are the top points that we want to discuss and keep it simple.
Yep. I could
Yeah.
do that too, just remove the diagram and keep
Yeah. I
points.
mean, it gives you more talking points, and it also kind of like focuses people on the text alone, right?
Sure. Yep. Anything else for this one?
Hi, Akash.
Yep.
I think in this slide, I have a similar question as Sajay asked in the chat. So people may ask the difference from Kivono.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think we may need to get prepared for this kind of questions.
Yep. Yeah, so I did think about this one. I didn't want to put this in the slide deck, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be a natural first question. My thoughts were to address how Ratify itself kind of is built to not just be in the Kubernetes context. So we kind of separate the concerns of applying policy and inside your cluster from the core verification scenarios. So as a result, we can then ship Ratify as a CLI, and it lights up CI/CD scenarios more naturally that way. The other way I was going to bring up was Kyverno is more like built-in support for all of these verifiers. So you have cosine and notation, and all these different verifications are built in as first-class implementations, while Ratify provides this extensible verifier model, which Kyverno doesn't have. So it's just another point that we can.
I think oh, sorry, Luce, you have a hand up. Go for it.
No, go ahead, Sajay. I will. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my recommendation would be to focus on the capabilities that Ratify brings rather than highlight on like primary differences between Kyverno. For example, the first point is definitely clear, right? Like we are not targeting Kubernetes only. There is an experience that we plan for CLI and extensibility. The second one, clearly, I would say, is that we align with the Gatekeeper project. So people who have Gatekeeper, this is how they would extend the Kubernetes scenario as well. The built-in verifiers, I think we can choose later on to kind of go built-in or not. So it might not be a strong aspect. And Ratify does not aim to be a pure admission controller, right? The goal is from a roadmap standpoint, I think Gatekeeper might be the admission controller always. And so those are the key aspects of how we would kind of like pitch the project. And from an extensibility standpoint, I actually anticipate why not OpenSSF and other scenarios also. So to me, I think that might be a good fit. But if we are going to extend for non security based policy authoring, like say, for example, SBOM licensing, or even like any other kind of like non security based policy authoring, then OpenSSF might not be the place, and CNCF seems much more natural given the alignment with Gatekeeper is what I would also kind of like emphasize on. So I don't know, those would be my points that I would bring. Definitely, like it. Given that this call is recorded, it's on the call. I would say don't shed any kind of like negative light on another project. It's just not healthy for any project that's going in. On the contrary, just kind of highlight and focus on the points that you have a strength on, right?
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah. I think I also I agree with Sanjay that we don't need to specifically in the slide mention Kivono. We just get prepared. Maybe people ask about other communities. We just show that we are open and we are welcome any other solutions. But for Ratify, we have our specific area, our focus, especially in secure supply chain areas. So yeah, we don't want to see anything that, for example, Kibana is not going good. We just be open, and we have solutions in different focus area, and we have our own capabilities, as you said here. Yeah, just get prepared for this kind of questions.
Makes sense. The other one was, I wonder if there's going to be a question about, seems like primary use cases with Gatekeeper. What's the differentiator, or why isn't this just an external data provider for Gatekeeper versus something more than that? So I guess with that, we can drive home the CLI experience as being not just admission controller based.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can, I don't know, you can call out the fact that we have prototype with Containerd directly and things like that and other cloud native projects, right? So there's a good amount of experimentation that's happening, but it's not and it's probably called out in the roadmap to some extent. So it's not just a gatekeeper only scenario.
Anything else on this one?
No, thanks for putting this together, Akash.
So next slide is talk a little bit about the relationship between Ratify and Gatekeeper. So focus in on what is Gatekeeper again, talk about how the external data provider relation between Gatekeeper and Ratify is, Gatekeeper would, from this demo scenario, you try to create an image, try to create a sample pod based off of an image, and the client would then send, a request to the cluster to create the resource that would then, be intercepted or would be passed on to Gatekeeper, which is an admission controller here. Admission controller will try to evaluate whether or not the resource should be allowed. And as part of that process, Ratify is then called from Gatekeeper with the container image reference to determine whether or not to basically return the entire verification report that it performs. So in this flow, Ratify is kind of advising here, performing verification, returning back a verbose report. Gatekeeper then applies a predefined Rego policy on top of the report and then comes up with the final decision on allowing it or not allowing it. And then I'll talk briefly about how this is an admission scenario, but Gatekeeper is beyond just admission. For audit scenarios where you're periodically checking every single resource in the cluster, Gatekeeper will also query Ratify every time to evaluate whether or not the image that is associated with that resource is still valid or not. So yeah, does that make sense? Any comments on this one?
Yeah, do you want to highlight any of the performance tests that we did?
So I was...
You talk about it at least.
Yeah, I was hesitant because of timing, but maybe I can drop like a little, hey, we've done some performance enhancements here to make sure that this Gatekeeper Ratify interaction is scalable for large clusters.
Yeah, I mean, did we tag the issues that you did for Ratify on the performance or something like that?
Yeah, I did talk a little bit under production grade here, but
yeah, no, that's good. We can just talk about those and maybe highlight the fact that there were a set of issues that were targeted specifically for performance and scale for Ratify as well.
You wrote a paper on this, Akash, right? So you can also just have a link there as well.
I'll add I guess I can add like a small link at the bottom, something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Just a quick
also,
note.
yeah, go ahead, Suzanne.
Oh, sorry, Kash. Like we can have backup slides as well, right? We don't have to talk through, we don't have to present all the slides, but we can focus on the important ones. But if they ask about certain details, we can bring up the backup slides. Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Faith.
we
Yeah,
could
that's a
do
great
that.
idea.
That's a good idea. So depending on the questions, we can just refer back to that.
Yeah, and I think a small link for performance tests, I think is enough. We don't need to dig into the details of the performance benchmark. But in case people, especially the security folks in the security tag, they might be interested to take a look. They can look at it after the meeting. But I think we can focus on the Ratify introduction itself.
Okay, sounds good. I'll try to create like a backup slide like you suggested, Susan, maybe with more details there, and then I'll try to just link, maybe hyperlink on the bottom, small little asterisks on read more about perf here if you're curious. Okay, any other last minute comments on this one?
Yeah, I just wonder if we want to have another example for the CI use case.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's
Right.
it's a good point. The problem, I guess maybe you can make a backup slide about it, but the timing is my concern here. With 15 minutes, I'm not sure
Yeah, I know the
how
time.
much ground we can cover. So
Yeah, I think here we are want to give a very brief overview of the major use cases or scenarios, right? I think
yeah.
maybe Akash, you can just mention we have this scenarios, but I want to highlight the main scenario here for the Kubernetes cluster. And if they have any other question, we can provide a reference later or something. Yeah,
Okay,
I
yeah,
think we
makes
should
sense.
have the focus on the short time to express our what we want to deliver to the audience and help for the donation. Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of, I guess they would ask questions immediately after the presentation. That's what I guess the pattern is, right? They wouldn't just be interrupting. Is that what you've seen, Feynman? It's just kind of like ad hoc questions afterwards?
I think they might have some ad hoc questions afterwards because
Okay.
they will give a dedicated time, maybe 10 to 15 minutes for you to finish your presentation.
Mhm.
Even I think they may not be interrupting you.
Got it. Okay, that's good to know. All right, so moving on to the next one, I think we're going to rework this diagram, but the goal of this slide is just to show from an end-to-end experience of what it looks like. So from a developer building your image, you would then, for signature validation, you use a tool like Notary Project to sign. You may or may not have extra supply chain artifacts, so SBOMs, vulnerability reports, things like that. But for this flow, once you've pushed your image with the associated signature, a cluster admin would step in and would define certain policies that they want to enforce via gatekeeper templates. And then one of those policies here would be you want to guarantee that you have a valid Notary Project signature on the image. And then once the user tries to deploy that particular workload, which references the image, the resource creation request goes to the API server, hits Gatekeeper. Gatekeeper then invokes Ratify with the image reference. Ratify has a configured set of certificates as well as the Notary Project verifier, performs its verification, and then based off of the report, which will include whether the signature validation was successful, open policy, the OPA gatekeeper's rego that's configured will determine the overall verify result as true or false. And if it's true, then it's compliant. If it's false, then it's not compliant, and the resource gets blocked from being created in the cluster. Yeah, so this is just to contextualize what the demo is going to be. Any other thoughts about this slide? Okay. And then here I'll quickly show the video here. So so we start off by checking the cluster and its current resources that are installed on it. So we have both Gatekeeper pre-installed on the cluster, ready to go. We also have Ratify that's been pre-installed on the cluster. And Ratify has been pre-configured with certain information, things like which certificates that we want to use for signature validation, as well as the notary project verifier has been configured with Ratify to use those certificates that have been specified. So after we've done that, we're going to take a quick look at each image. So our signed image has an associated notary project signature, and we can see here. And we'll also try to deploy an unsigned image later on, and we can see that our unsigned image has no artifacts reference to it. So that means there's no signature attached. So the first step, we'll try to run a demo pod that has the signature attached to it, and we'll see that the pod demo was created, which is expected because it was signed. And then if we try to deploy an unsigned image, we expect it to fail. That's exactly what happened. And if we want more details about it, we can then check the Ratify logs. And the Ratify logs have extra information, including the actual verifier report, which the policy was applied to. So this verifier report shows that, the image, the unsigned image, had a reference of this, and then there was it failed verification, and it failed because there was equivalently no signatures that were found. And yeah, that's the demo. So it's fairly straightforward. I've kind of cut out the installation process. I also cut out the actual constraint template rego, but that's just so that we're very clear on what the actual scenario is, which is just blocking the pod from being deployed. Yeah, any thoughts on the demo?
Since our message refers not found is like not the best error message, do we want to show a different like untrusted signature?
Yeah, we could do that. I could change it to be like a signed image with like a different, like a cert. It uses a cert that's not the one configured or
Trusted,
something.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let me take a note of that. And the final main slide is the future roadmap. So I'll talk about how our current stable version is v1.1.0, and we intend to release the next few minor versions over the next 6 months or so. On the roadmap include, we're currently migrating the Ratify project, the Ratify repository to its own dedicated organization, and we intend to have that complete within the next few months. We also want to introduce and improve new verifiers. So some of the work that we have lined up includes improving existing signature verifiers like notation, adding timestamping support, or cosign with more keyless configuration options, and being more robust. We also are looking into collaborating with other communities, including the Guac project, and integrating Guac as an external verifier. Other large items are multi-tenancy support via namespace separation. This will allow for large for clusters that are shared between teams or between different clients to use Ratify and be able to be separated by namespace. We're also going to invest back into our CLI experience and focus in on how we can provide better experience for those using Ratify inside of their CI/CD pipelines. Looking into some attestation verification possibilities, so supporting some popular attestation frameworks, which would include both combining the signature verification and then invoking maybe one of Ratify's existing or custom verifiers as part of that process. And then finally, we're doing investigation and looking to support container runtime verification through containerd. So have Ratify run on your node prior to your CRI pulling the image and perform verifications at that level as well. Yeah. Anything you think I missed or I should focus in on? Damon, please.
Yeah. For the roadmap, I think overall looks good. For the attestation verification, I can tell you a fact. I know there are a few folks, especially their leaderships in CNCF tax security. They are the maintainers for InTotal and TAF. For example, the people who replied to us about the schedule, Marina, she's the maintainer for InTotal framework. So I think if we can give an example for attestation verification support in the roadmap and add InTotal as an example, I think this is our plan, right? InTotal from verification. I think they might have their personal favor on Ratify because they know, hey, we will have integration with InTotal, so there might be a collaborative opportunity for them and for both.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if we wanted to name drop InTotal, but I can definitely add that if we think that's going to provide more value. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just an example that we gonna support for those frameworks and attestation verifiers.
Got it. Okay. Sure, I'll make sure to mention that as well.
Another two tips. So for one, make sure you are presenting the slide deck in presenters mode and do not show the notes, your personal notes on the bottom, because people may distracted by your notes instead of the content that you are presenting and talking to the audiences. And another tip, so I think we will need to share the slide deck with people on the internet. So we will need to transfer this from the Microsoft PowerPoint to Google slide deck, so it can be shared externally.
Okay. Sure, we can do that. Or the way I saw Copa doing it is they just attach the PDF version of the slides and then they uploaded their demo to YouTube. Either way works, whatever you think is appropriate. So
I think the PDF is also good.
Okay. And then the last slide is just, I saw Copa had the same slide, so just a call to action on where folks can find more information and then join our Ratify channel.
I have two comments. One small one. Do we want to mention that we have a regular community core? So welcome to join. Do we mention here? No, so maybe we can mention that we have a regular community core every week, so we can ask them to join. Another thing is, it seems we have into starting from slides 2 to 8, we have around 7 slides, right? So given 15 minutes, so every slide average not more than 2 minutes, right? So you can rehearse it based on this. Yeah. So maybe some slide you use less time, some you may need more, especially you have the diagram and the demo, you want to do some explanation, right? So I think some explanation can be covered in the diagram in slide 5. So in the demo, it just be very quick.
Got it. Okay.
Just
So
some tips for you. Yeah.
Question, Akash, is there anything that we need to clean up? Or what are the things that we can do quickly to make it more presentable? So for example, the Ratify dev, our documentation is currently like not in order. If it's on the call to action, the chance of, people visiting the site, maybe we can prioritize that work.
yeah. I don't know if others have thoughts on this. Yeah, I mean, it'd be great. I just don't know what will get done in a week. So
Yep, Feynman, do you know what are the actual changes that's needed to make the document links appear in the right order? Well, we don't have an order. We probably need to define how to order our documentation.
You mean reorder the documentation directory and refactor the structure of the Ratify documentation?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that we need to do for Ratify documentation. But I think we don't have enough time to finish that before the presentation meeting. Yeah, we only have 1 week left. I'm thinking if we wanna make people to take care only one document, I think we can give a quick start link or a blog post link that users or that every audience can get started fastly and that will not be distracted by other content on Ratify website. I agree with Susan that there are some document that we should be cleaning and improved. But for this time, I think we can maybe add only one getting started guide here as a call to action.
Yep.
But for the V1.2 release, we can target that release to clean up the Ratify documentation and make sure it has a well-organized structure on the website.
Yeah, I think we may not. Maybe we can do some basic changes. I mean, for this presentation, I don't think we need necessarily do that as Feynman mentioned, but we can, in upcoming release, we can consider a basic structure for the website. And I think this is also a very good point that we welcome contributors, right? Later can join us, even if we are selected for sandbox project, we can also trigger the LFX membership, right, Feynman, so that we can have more people help us to contribute to community and then make it better.
Yeah, we used to have mentees, the students, to help us improve the documentation and write more documents on the website in Notary project and also in ORAS. This is something that we can leverage and collect from the community.
Yeah. Yes, I think even, I mean, if what we can do quickly is that we can create an issue. I think I already have an issue to list some points we want to do, right? But we just didn't start doing it. So if someone asks a similar question, we can show them we already have an issue to track that, and we will continuously improve it. Yeah.
So Sudan, Akash, I think the action here is to change the more information at ratify.dev to a specific link to the getting started or a blog post. Yeah.
Yep.
Akash already have a note on the comment.
Oh, okay.
Is this the last slide, Akash?
Yeah, this is the last one. Yep. So I will, so what I'll do is I'm gonna add slides here, like we discussed, and then I'm gonna time it, and then we'll have to probably cut stuff, because unfortunately, I don't think we'll have enough time to add everything that we discussed today. But
Do
if
we
it comes
have
up
the
in
full
discussion or
hour?
questions, we can.
How much total time do we have?
We have 15 minutes, I think, Feynman, to present in total, and then I guess after that, questions.
Yeah, I think in general, 15 minutes is the it's a limited, it's a required time to finalize all of those presentations, but they might have some ad hoc questions afterwards. But make sure all of those content can be delivered no later than 15 minutes.
Okay. Yep.
We should really be careful about the timing, because this is only one of the agenda items in their meeting.
Yeah. I wonder
I
if
think,
you want to
yeah.
focus on the most important and then leave more time for question depending on which area they want to dig deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Susan. Yeah, we focus on the high level one and the message we want to deliver. I think some details we can just skip and get prepared for the question.
Okay.
We can assume most of the audience are not familiar with this project, so maybe too much details will not helpful. But we can prepare that if someone is experienced, we can answer questions.
Got it. Okay.
Just
So
yeah, just a brief overview for the project is enough. Yeah.
yeah, I'm thinking then that this one, it might be too much detail here. I could probably cover it in the slide, and then I'm gonna get rid of this diagram here and just make this just text, and then we'll see. I thought this was helpful because we were kind of emphasizing the component aspect of it, but I won't I won't deep dive into what is each component. I'll just talk about, oh, we have these different ones, and then they all interact via the.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, because as Louis or Sajid mentioned, they are, for example, short names, right? KMS, store.
Yeah.
People may have a question, what does this store mean, or KMS? And also slide 4, 5, 6 are all talking about the Kubernetes scenario, actually. So I think maybe we can reduce one slide and just 2.
Yeah.
You can consider that.
Sounds good. Yep. So yeah, Feynman, whenever you have a chance to update this diagram, we'll make this the main diagram that we discuss for the Kubernetes interaction for Ratify. I will remove, or I won't remove it, but I'll make this a backup slide, like Susan mentioned. And then if a question comes up, like, oh, how does the actual interaction work, then we can point to this.
Yeah, I agree. And for slide 4, I think we can remove that or move it to the backup.
Yeah.
And I will update the slide 5, the diagram, by the end of this week.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, that's all I had today. Thank you all for the feedback. I will probably ask for another round of asynchronous feedback once I've updated the slides.
And thanks a lot, Akash.
Thank you, Akash.
I know we've got 5 minutes left. Sorry for taking up the whole time.
Yeah, Akash,
This is the most important work.
Yeah, you are on behalf of us.
Try not to let you guys down.
And as a recommendation, you can do rehearsal and record the timing on your side, and make sure you can deliver that content within 15 minutes.
Okay, yes, I will make sure that I'm below 15 minutes for sure. Hopefully 2 minutes of cushion. So
yeah.
So we have a few more minutes. I think next on the agenda, I don't know if it's Akash or Binbin's item. It's about the compatibility and for the new CRDs.
Yeah, it's me. So I actually it's just a reminder, and I think we already discussed it when we designed the multi-tenancy. So the current policy verifiers, those CRDs are all namespace, and now they're all clustered. So now we will have two kinds of CRDs. One is clustered, one is namespace. So for the policy, we will have like cluster policy and a policy for the namespace. So once we do this change, then the previous policy is clustered, and the after the when we support the multi-tenancy, then the policy CRD will be namespace. So this is kind of a breaking change. So the scope of those three CRDs will be changed.
So if someone in V 1.2.0 just did Helm repo update and then Helm, upgrade, would it break for them?
I think the installation will be failed because if they try to like apply the same CRD, like for example, the same policy results, and because the scope is changed, so it will be failed. So they have to delete the old CRDs and then do the Helm install or Helm upgrade.
I see. Okay. Are we planning to do this in a minor release then?
Yes, that's the question. So it's a breaking change. But we are not V2 right now.
So for Bing,
Yeah.
I think if considering this is a breaking change, users need to uninstall the old CRDs while upgrading to a new version. I think this is a bit a non-seamless. This is a bit a non-seamless upgrading experience to users. I'm thinking, how can we help users to upgrade their CRDs to new versions seamlessly? For example, can we have a share script to help them? Or this might be a bit dangerous if we have the script to delete their CRDs.
Yeah,
I don't have
a script to help users do the migration.
Or it could be a Ratify CRD commands to help them to run the upgrade. At least I think require users to manually delete their old CRDs is a bit cumbersome for users, and especially for their upgrading experience.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I think there is nothing we can do on the Helm commands because the CRD name are the same, but they are different CRDs now. So we can do that through the Helm command. But we can do a script before user running the Helm upgrade command.
Yeah, make sure the upgrading process are behind the scene, and we have the script to execute the OCRD's removal, and we can print out the warning message that all CRDs will be removed by Ratify. If there anything you need to back up or something like that, but this should be handled behind the scene instead of manually handled by users for upgrading scenario.
Yes, that's good. Yeah, thank you for the suggestion.
For the 1.2 release, I think since multi-tenancy introduced a lot of changes, maybe we can consider a beta release first, and before that we can have some kind of bug bash testing, and then we release a beta version for more testing and feedbacks.
Is it the right use for the beta version. I thought beta version is usually before V, like V0, and now we already V1.1. So
I mean, maybe I didn't get your point. I mean, 1.2 beta.
I feel beta is usually when the project in a very early stage, but
No.
now we already have stable
Yeah.
version, so I don't know if we should have a beta version.
From the conventional versioning, I think we can have beta and the release candidate after V1. And in Notary project, Auras and other CNCF projects, they usually have the similar versioning strategy. And like Kubernetes, they even have beta RC after their stable release, right? I think this is allowed, and it conforms with the conventional versioning.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I brought this up is because it's big changes, and if we are not sure about the maturity, it's better that we can be conscious before we have, for example, announce 1.2 officially, so that we have a time for testing and collecting feedbacks. Then we can release its a stable version. Because it's a big feature, I think for small feature we don't necessarily do that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, we can consider that we are all the time today. Yeah.
Binbin, I also have a draft version of the breaking changes definition in the ratify pull request. It's a good time to review what we
Okay.
define as breaking change and how should we
Yeah.
handle that.
Yeah, I'll take it up.
Thanks. Yeah, we're at time already today. Thanks for the discussion, Akash, on the presentation slides. So we'll continue to work offline on that. Yeah, thanks for joining, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.